Hey guys, Bix Weir, roadtoruin.com. I just had a half an hour discussion with my friend Will Lehr about the darkness of what all the evils that are going on that are not allowed to be talked on YouTube. But I do want to talk to Will about a couple of very important things: silver, cryptocurrencies, and the destruction of our financial system. It should be clear to everybody that, number one, the markets are rigged. That's the only reason they're still up and running. Remember, the entire year, everything has been shut down and the stock market's almost as high as it's ever was. The only way to do that is to rig the markets every day out of the U.S. Treasury and the Federal Reserve System. And that's Steve Mnuchin, the head of the U.S. Treasury, was the head of computer market rigging at Goldman Sachs. It should tell you everything you need to know. Will, where do you see, let's start with the economy. Where do you see us as far as how many green shoots do you see out there, and what's the potential of a quick recovery?
Well, without really, if I just look at it without, from a non-expanded viewpoint, it appears to be a corporate oligarchy taking over, and that small business is being eradicated, and that we're going into this. I mean, dude, look at the Target, all the big boxes sales are through the roof, right? Well, because Amazon, right? What do we all do? We panic to start buying shit online stuff. Sorry, we're not on the. So you know, from a lower level viewpoint of analysis, it appears there's a massive corporate oligarchy taking over and just shutting everything down. Which is part of the bad guys, agenda. I think while I know how much pain we have to go through from an economic standpoint because of all the monetary creation, all the stimulus, all the fake assets, phantom stuff that's out there. While I do think there's going to absolutely be a moment of reckoning, I also believe that there could be a boost. There could be, like, if we reopen our economy and we have, blockchain technologies and perhaps other new technologies, energy-related technologies, we could see a massive boom where people just forget about the old, burning down fiat crap system, and let's just full steam ahead with this one. I mean, we have an entrepreneurial spirit in this country that is unfriggin' believable. And it's not just me, it's not just my partner, it's not just you, it's great minds and hearts and souls all over this country. And that is an asset that is really hard to evaluate, right? But in times like these where, okay, if I look at this from a little bit of a higher perspective and think about disclosures, and we think about released technologies, and we think about, I'm not talking about a NESARA or a whole massive humanitarian redistribution of wealth, but just some basic, like, let's unlock, okay, we've been on this petro crap for a long time when we can actually harness free energy from radio waves that Tesla did 100 years ago. So, I think we know there's dude, you've seen them flying around in the sky at night in your goggles. So, like, I think a technological revolution, which is also in Cliff's data, could actually propel us out of a lot of hardship really fast. It just depends on timing. I think it depends on how things unravel and unfold. But obviously, the printing press, the stimulus they're doing everything they can to keep people fed, which I applaud. Okay, I'm not for stimulus, I'm not for bailouts, but, like, when my neighbors start starving, we're all effed, okay, right? So they're keeping people fed. Like, if you think of this from just a damage control standpoint, I'm kind of impressed, believe it or not. Like, I can't believe people aren't eating each other yet. I can't believe we don't have mass hysteria. People have been locked down. Our daughters can't hang out and hug. I mean, it's like people are losing their minds, but hey, life, we're still going on here. So I have this has given me a little bit of a breath of fresh air in humanity. I don't, so I don't think we're going to have, I don't think we're going to have back to the dark ages. I don't think we're going to have massive crashes and collapses. I think there's going to be fireworks. There's going to be banks that go down. There's going to be systems that freeze. There's going to be stuff that gets real scary or freaky or whatever, maybe for short periods of time. I hope our water keeps pumping and our food trucks keep delivering and all this stuff. Yes, there's going to be food shortages, right? I mean, that's just sort of an inevitable mathematical metric at this point. How it plays out, I don't know. I think we'll probably see a resurgence in greenhouse farming. You know, Netherlands, they're a net exporter of produce because of their greenhouse production. Like, we could do it here.
Here's my question for you. And I agree. What the world you described is the likely, I think the likely in the road to Ruta theory, the likely future, because there are so many suppressed technologies, suppressed human ingenuity out there, which is beautiful. The problem we have, obviously, is our current system cannot be brought along with. There's no way to transition out of this system into another because, one, the amount of debt we have. What good is having an exploding economy where we make, you know, we're generating trillions of dollars in good revenue when you have hundreds of trillions that have been printed in the years before? You can't just go forward and say Yahoo and not pay off the past. So all that money you're talking about right now has to go to pay for past sins. The only way I see going forward is the destruction of the old system first, because one, there's massive misallocation of wealth. 99.9% of the wealth in the world is held by just a handful of people. We're playing on these little tiny bottom realms that if the system stays in place, they stay in charge. And that's what basically what was said in the Federal Reserve System, the Federal Reserve comic books, the Wishes and Rainbows and the Road to Ruta stuff, is that the system actually implodes, and then money is reallocated according to Social Security balances, and there's a creative destruction event to destroy the past before we move forward. And that's the big problem I have with Trump, is that he's not doing that. He is trying to build a future on a basis of complete criminality and quicksand that has to be dealt with in some way and form. You cannot take away, you can't print all this money, for example, just the money. I'm not talking about the derivative world or anything like that, just the money. You can't print all this money without paying it back to have a sound basis for an economy, unless you're just gonna continue to blow things up and then have everything to be destroyed. You see where I'm getting at? I think there really has to be a moment where we just stop the old system, it crashes, and it's real easy. It just means no bailout. And that might come on Tuesday. We don't know. But to move forward, you need something like that to destroy the old system.
I don't disagree. I agree 100%. Is Trump actually, so you said that, like, is he actually doing that, or is he buying time?
He's buying time.
That's what I mean. I have, like, they're not going to do a bailout, right? One of my buddies who's really smart, shout out to Michael, he has been down this rabbit hole, and he thinks nobody's going to approve a bailout. What they're going to try to do is a debt for equity swap on the blockchain, on Ripple, which is the banker's chain.
Somebody told me that. I just laughed my ass off. That was the most ridiculous thing I ever heard, ever.
That it's not mathematically feasible to do.
Oh, they can try, sure. But here's the problem. And Bitcoin Ben was saying the same thing. They're going to use the ICE system, and what's backed. They'll use back to do it. And yeah, that's what the bad guys want. They would love that. The crypto cabal would love that shit. But there's a very simple problem in that it doesn't solve anything.
Right. But what if it's a setup? What if it's a setup to allow this to go through, and then you burn that down? So you basically allow the bankers to, you let them think that their plan is proceeding, right? With all this Ripple net, with all these banks around the world, let them do the swap, and then, pull the rug, or in some way let the thing collapse at that point.
But what's the difference?
What happens with just a debt jubilee? If that were, like, what if they?
But it couldn't. The word debt jubilee conjures up someone of power saying, voila, your debt is gone. It's what Occam's razor. The simplest explanation, the simplest way to get where you're talking about is just not to bail out the banks and let the chips fall where they may. In this whole debt swapping out on the crypto blockchain and all that, Ben was telling me about that for years, and I'm calculating how much they would have to do per day to do something like that. And it was in the $100-200 billion per day based on the amount of derivatives that are being created in the background in the quadrillions. Mm-hmm. Could they ever catch up and say, all right, we've covered all the assets? It's ridiculous. I mean, even the thought of it should be ridiculous to anybody, but they're so desperate, they need to do something.
And maybe he's letting them try. He's letting them, like, I don't know. Like, I mean, this is all we can do as we look at these things. I mean, Trump says one thing and he does, like the way that he sets this thing with the vaccine thing was brilliant. Like, now you literally, who would I just see just today? You've got liberals on the news. Cuomo is saying, whoa, we should test the vaccines for efficacy before we release them. We need to be very careful. I'm like, are you serious?
Because
of Trump. And that was all a setup. He did that all intentionally. And you called it. Some of us were like, oh no, just watch. That's genius. So, I mean,
he called Fauci an idiot today in a press conference. That guy's an idiot. I love it.
Here's my question to a voter, okay? Pretty simple. Biden is pro-masks. He's pro-lockdowns. He's pro-mandatory vaccine. He's pro-keeping schools closed.
Massive taxation.
Oh, my God, thank you. Increasing taxes, okay? Trump is anti-mask, anti-lockdown, lower taxes. Like, it's like, why are you so anti-Trump now? And then it's like, I'm going to have to like formulate a little bit of a conversation to start having with my friends where it's like, dude, you know, he just brokered a peace deal in the West Bank, right? Wow. One of my wife's friends who's a hardcore TDS, Trump derangement syndrome person, and she's a sweetheart. And I love her to death. And she's Palestinian American. And I'm like, holy shit, just send her this, dude. I've got videos of gay Palestinian Americans saying how they support Trump now because of this whole deal. Like,
but that just proves, and there are some people, it doesn't even matter what Trump does. They will never, ever, ever, ever come around. And it doesn't matter, you know, what stuff they show about Biden. It just does not matter to them. They are so stuck in their narrative that almost impossible to get out. We talked about in the earlier video, which will be posted on the private road because it would get me kicked off YouTube. We talked about what it would take to flip the entire country to be on Trump's side. Trump has that card in his sleeve. He has one of those aces up his sleeve that he can play such that both the Democrats, the Republicans, the independents, the entire world would get behind him. And I have always wondered why he held off so long of playing that card, but I think within the next month or two, he will play that card and everybody will be, no matter what you believe now, will change their mind about Trump. So I don't want to give that away because we'll get kicked off YouTube, but it's on the private road right now. And I know you have another interview to go to, Will, but I want to tell people, if you guys want to get your assets in a place that can survive any kind of turmoil that's coming, and there's a hell of a lot of turmoil coming, you need to talk to Will about getting yourself some physical silver, some cryptocurrencies, and a self-directed IRA so you can pull it, get your retirement savings out of their system. Because if it's not in your own possession, you're going to lose it in this transition. Will, why don't you tell people how to get in touch with you and what you guys offer?
Thanks, buddy. Yeah, we discovered a type of self-directed IRA about 10 years ago that nobody really knows about. It was authored into existence by a congressional attorney 30 years ago. So insiders have been using it legally forever. But it's a type of platform. It's a type of self-directed IRA that allows the individual to manage and control the assets, him or herself, where they're not stuck in some mutual fund at Fidelity or wherever. And it's also not bars of gold that are at Delaware Depository that you'll never see ever in your life ever. If you want physical metals, you can actually control where they're stored yourself. So it was I was in the metals business at the time, and learning about this was kind of a godsend because we had so many people freaking out, cashing out their 401, closing them out, taking the taxes, taking the penalties, and putting it into metals. And then we learned about this where, wait a minute, here's a way you can take control of all the assets, keep it inside the IRA, so there's no taxes and penalties, which can be a lot for a decent size IRA, right? So it allows the individual to buy metals and then control where they're stored. It works for any asset class imaginable, from real estate to cryptos. People have been using it for cryptos the last several years. It allows you to control the keys. Your cryptos aren't held in the custodial, by a custodian where you just get a statement. You actually control the private keys yourself, which is huge. So if everything melts down, literally your assets are you can go pick them up, right? I mean, they're in your control, so they're yours. At that point, you can decide what to do with the IRS. I mean, I would say this in front of a court of law. Look, if I wake up tomorrow and like Chase, the banks are on fire, figuratively and literally, I'm going to grab my assets, even my IRA assets, and bring them home, and worry about any potential tax ramifications later. If the world catches on fire, the IRS is going to be, not that I'm not going to pay them what they're due, but my first concern is going to be getting my assets under my control, not, oh my God, how am I going to pay taxes on this? We can worry about that later.
The key there, no third party. You don't have to worry about a third party still being in existence. You don't have to worry about a depository being in existence, a brokerage house being in existence, your 401k company being in existence. You are the one who are in charge of holding your own assets in your own retirement account. It's amazing.
Yeah, and 401ks have been locked up if it's active. If you're currently employed and you have a 401k, unfortunately, they lock the funds up. You can't take them out unless you quit or retire or whatever, change your employment status.
That tells you a lot about that system. The reason the 401k system is locked up and you can't have access to it or move it out of a 401k while you're working is that if everybody did it at the same time, it would destroy the entire system.
Run on the bank.
You need to be smarter than the system and get your assets in your own possession.
Yep. But the COVID CARES Act has created a provision where people can take out up to $100,000 out of their 401k if they can claim. I don't even think you have to prove. You have to claim, maybe you have to prove that you've been impacted financially by COVID. If you go to the CARES Act, there's like 3 or 4 different things. Well, guess what? My business is doing great, but I've been impacted financially. Why? My kids are out of school. I'm shuffling kids around to tutors and daycares, and so my life has been. I don't have a 401k, but if I did, I could sit down with an attorney and absolutely build a case where, yes, I can withdraw my 100K from my 401k. Now, if you do that, I looked into all the laws, you have 3 years to pay it back, right? It can be used for personal use, and you have 3 years to pay it back. You don't have to pay it back to the same 401k. You can pay it back in any window within the 3 years. You could pay it back next week.
So you can pay it back to an IRA, self-directed IRA.
Correct.
There you go.
It's a qualified plan. That's all they care about, that it goes back in a qualified plan. So if you have a 401k that you're actively working with and you've got a nice chunk of money that's locked there and you're worried about it and you want to put it into one of these and you can't and you don't want to quit your job, talk to your CPA, look at the CARES Act, see if you could argue that you qualify for that up to $100,000 loan or withdrawal. And then you could, in theory, just just repay it right into another qualified plan, which is totally legal, and then put it into the self-directed. So
you could buy physical silver, for example, or cryptocurrencies and put them into a self-directed IRA that you control the metal and the cryptocurrencies and you store them yourself, and voila.
And the taxes are deferred. So for crypto traders, even if you're not a trader, but you just, hey, I own these 10 cryptos or 5 cryptos, and as one of, they don't all go up together. If you were here in 2017, right? Some of them shoot up and then the other ones lag and then they shoot up. you might want to take some profits. You might want to move, Ethereum doubles tomorrow. You might want to sell some Ethereum and put it into Bitcoin or whatever. You can do all those trades, and you don't have to keep track or record of it because there's no capital gain tax within the IRAs. It's all just deferred until you take your distributions, which are taxed as income. So you could put $100 in an IRA or a Roth, even better, let it grow to $1 million if you did really well. And all that gain is not taxed. All that is taxed is your distributions in your income phase. If it's a Roth, it's completely tax-free. We have people setting those up from scratch right now and investing in cryptos. Within a Roth, you can only put $6,000 or $7,000 a year into it, but now you have this tax-free piggy bank that you can trade in cryptos in and out of, or any assets, and it can grow to pick a number, and it's totally tax-free. So that's a cool strategy too. But we also have a crypto trade desk we launched a couple years ago. So for larger transactions, $10,000 US and up. But if you're having problems with exchanges, if you've got a chunk of money and you want to get it into crypto like today, and you don't want to go through the week's worth of KYC and stuff with the exchanges, we can help. So yeah, there's fees there, 5 to 8% of the fees kind of commensurate with these private market, but it's fast, it's simple, it's easy. So that's an option for folks too.
Awesome stuff. And I vouch for you guys with my whole heart. I've been working with you for years, and we can go back, way back, and they're going to take care of you, especially Road to Ruta people. They love us. They are us. They don't love us. They are us. And Will, how do people get in touch with you?
Perpetualassets.com, or you can call 888-281-2630. 2630. You got it, baby. We have a funny thing with the phone number.
I've screwed up that phone number way too many times. Write it down right now. 888-281-2630.
That's it.
There we go.
That's it. Call us anytime. Please leave a message. If we don't pick up, there's usually just 3 or 4 of us on the phones. And when we get hammered, sometimes we miss calls. So just leave us a message. You can hit my extension directly on there if you want. If I miss you, leave me a message. I'll get back to you, usually same day. So love my Road to Ruta friends, family. Love you, Bix. These are unbelievably unprecedented times that we're living through. We knew this was coming, or some form of this, for a long time. Now that it's here, I mean, I almost had this year has been so crazy for me, bro, because what happened was when the lockdown, it wasn't COVID so much, it wasn't Cliff's data, it was when they closed schools that I was like, oh shit.
Here we go.
It brought up all this old stuff for me, dude. It brought up all this old, awakening stuff of just a lot of fear. And so I've had to work through a lot of that, but
that's the key. That's their plan, is to put fear into us, and they feed off the fear. So
yeah,
as we go through this, everybody remember, we are spiritual beings living a physical presence for the time being. Mm-hmm. And fear is not good for us. Love is a hell of a lot better for humanity. It's a higher vibration. They're trying to bring us down. And if you understand the bigger picture, you can embrace the love and aspects of life and move forward with a higher vibration, bringing everybody with you. And that's the awesome part. Will, thank you so much for spending time and oh, by the way, you guys, go over to Road to Ruta Private Road and you will see a crazy interview about all the stuff we're not allowed to talk about on YouTube. So Will, thank you, and you take care. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, my brother. Always a pleasure.